From HanselMinutes.com, it's Hansel Minutes, a weekly discussion with web developer and technologist Scott Hanselman. This is Lawrence Ryan announcing show number 332, recorded live Thursday, August 9th, 2012. Support for Hansel Minutes is provided by Telerik, offering the best in developer tools and support. Online at telerik.com, and by Franklins.net, training developers to work smarter. And now offering GesturePak, a powerful gesture recording and recognition system for Microsoft Connect for Windows developers. Details at gesturepak.com. In this episode, Rob Conery turns the tables and interviews Scott.
Hi, this is Rob Conery, and this is another episode of Hansel Minutes. I'm sitting in for Scott today. My guest today is Scott Hanselman. Scott Hanselman, as you might know, has the blog up at hanselman.com, where everything is all about Hanselman. So, Scott, I want to jump right in. I know your show is all about keeping on a straight, tight rail, and I want to start and just talk about you, because we don't really talk about you. You talk about you on the show, but no one else talks necessarily about you. I know that Mo interviewed you once. But I think it's time for someone to interview you who might possibly not be your spouse and might actually ask you some difficult questions. Let's start with you. I'm reading here on the About Me page of your blog, and it says, my name is Scott Hanselman, web technologist and teacher. I work out of my home office on the web platform team at Microsoft. What does that mean? What do you do?
I work out of my home office for the web platform team at Microsoft.
You're doing what?
So I work for Scott Hunter. Scott Hunter, who manages all of ASP.NET. He's our program manager lead. So he manages all the guys that work on ASP.NET. So the people that work for, you know Scott Hunter?
I do.
Okay. So my peers and the people who work for Scott Hunter are Damien Edwards, who does web forms, Daniel Roth, who does web API, Eric Porter, who does web pages and MVC, myself. Let me see who else works for Scott Hunter. Scott's getting more and more people working for him now, so I need to remember everyone, because I know we've moved a couple more people under him. Howard Durking now works for us, and Howard works on NuGet. Rowan Miller from Entity Framework. Robbie Sauter, who just moved over from .NET Framework. Anton, who does PHP, and myself. And I think of myself as the PM of getting everything to work together. So if Damien is the PM of web forms, right? His focus is web forms, and he makes web forms awesome. And I feel like my job is like the PM of one ASP.NET, trying to get all the parts together, try to make sure that the scenarios run end to end. I'm the guy that wants to make sure that from file new project up until the moment you deploy, whether you're deploying to Azure, because we're now in the Azure group, or whether you're deploying to something via, FTP, that was a smooth experience. So I'm looking at the entire life cycle. I talk to the Entity Framework guys if something breaks in migrations, and I talk to the NuGet guys if something breaks in NuGet, and I talk to the optimizations and, like Mads Christensen, who works on HTML5 and CSS3 and all those things. I'm kind of the PM of miscellaneous, or the PM of the remainder.
So if you and I were in an elevator and we're only going up 2 floors, and I said, what do you do? What's your elevator pitch?
I would say I'm an architect on the ASP.NET team, and I focus a lot on community. Okay.
So you see yourself as maybe coordinating all the pieces, putting it together, and basically providing a nice story for .NET developers. Is that about right?
I wouldn't say providing a nice story. I mean, that gets close to marketing, and we have a marketing department. Mm-hmm. They make up the story and we ignore it. So we don't need a story, because we run things a little differently in ASP.NET, because it's open source, and we have been open since before Phil got there, and Phil just kicked the door open, and I continue to keep my foot in the door. And you think about the team, right? I mean, Howard and Eric and Rowan, and everyone on the team is interested in open source. And we show you guys, by you guys, that would be the set of all people who are not us. Mm-hmm. We show you guys like daily builds of stuff, and we brainstorm stuff. There's nothing secret. So that I feel like people who do stuff in secret need a story. We kind of avoid having a story.
What I find interesting is when I asked you what you do, you immediately involved the rest of the team. And then you came around to telling me, and this is my role in the team.
Oh, okay.
And
That's psychological. Yeah. You're like analyzing me psychologically. I guess I didn't realize that. Well, I mean, no one is in charge of ASP.NET except all of us as a team. So I think of us as a unit.
Well, the interesting thing is we also started talking about marketing, and a lot of people have asked, aren't you an evangelist? Which I know you bristle at.
I hate that word, but no, I'm not an evangelist. I would say I'm an enthusiast. Like an evangelist's job is to sell and evangelize and like, have you heard the news? Have you heard the good news? Let me invite me in and let me sit on your couch and I'll tell you all about the news. I'll do that, but not because it's my job. It's because I'm totally jazzed about it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I also stay inside, and by inside, I mean inside Microsoft, because I think I can still fix stuff. And I've said before publicly that I would quit if I thought I couldn't fix it anymore.
One thing that I know from working with you for a short amount of time, and then also from talking to you after leaving, is the amount of meetings that you go to and the amount of times that you've flat out said no. And, most people, when they go to conferences, they see you standing on a stage and going, hey, look at this, look at that, watch this, watch that. So a lot of people listening right now might say, well, no, Scott, that is what you do. But what they don't see, that what you do is the evangelist thing. Hey, look at this. Hey, wow.
Well, no, I think of that more as a side gig. Mm-hmm. Like the getting out and talking to people thing is something that we like doing because we feel that it's not just doing the little, Northwind database demo. It's more about the conversation you have afterwards. Mm-hmm. Right. And the other thing is that, again, look at the team that we've got here. I mean, Daniel and Howard and Damien are all really good presenters. So I don't have to go and I'm like, people used to say like I'm the face of ASP.NET, but that's totally not true anymore. I mean, Damien got like 2 out of the top 10 talks at TechEd this year. That's not ASP.NET talks. That's like talks in general. Mm-hmm. So we have the people who can do the talks. I don't need to be the guy that talks about ASP.NET because so many other people like Mads Christensen's going to be doing some talks in Philadelphia next year, and his reputation, like,
these guys don't fill a room like you do. And
I disagree. Damien Edwards had 800 people at his web forms talk at TechEd this year.
Well, it's web forms. I'm just kidding.
I'm just saying. The point I'm making is that let me put it this way: I don't have anyone working for me anymore. Mm-hmm. I used to have a team, and those guys have gone on to do other things and spread to the winds. But my job when I had a team to manage was to make those guys look good. And now I'm a peer on a team and I still feel like my job is to make them look good. So we're grooming bigger, better, faster, stronger presenters. And I think we're achieving that. And those guys are going off and doing stuff. I mean, look at Glenn Block, right? Doing his thing in the node industry, by himself. So, making more, Hansel people, if that's not too egocentric. I think it is by definition, but you know what I'm saying? Making more people who are jazzed, in the right way. And by jazz, not just going out and presenting about it, but taking the information back and then beating the bosses over the head with it.
Well, that's the thing that I find interesting.
Yeah. And I guess that's what you're alluding to, is how many times I hit people over the head with community in presentations and meetings.
Yeah, because people, when people go to these conferences and sit in the audience, they just see you talking about the neat new stuff. What they don't know is what you had to go through to make that presentation happen or to make that technology happen. And the reason I'm bringing this up is your blog lately has been, let's just call it, gaining some spice. And I think what people are starting to see is that you're letting out that tenacity, if I can use that word, that you use internally. You're starting to let it out publicly, which is something that, as your friend, I've always been on you about, get some teeth on that blog. And you have been. And I want to ask you about that. How is that going in terms of public perception of you? Because as we keep saying, you are the guy who stands up in front of people doing the demos, and it's always been very polished. And people think of you as a sales guy. I hate to say that, but I'm sorry, but
no,
I know.
I
You know what I mean,
this is the thing, though, right? You can't go and talk to anyone about anything without them saying, "Oh, you're a sales guy." Like Google I/O was a couple days ago, and I was like, "Okay, I don't get it. Is this Kindle Fire?" And it was an honest question. And like 20 people like, are you trolling? Oh, Microsoft.
Exactly.
Oh, remove your butt, what do you say? Remove your mouth from the boss's butt or whatever. It's like, no, I was an honest question, Yes, I did the research. It's a powerful device. But I mean, I crap on everyone equally.
Yeah.
But anytime you say anything about Microsoft, they always assume that you're like, I don't know, like I get money based on how many copies of Windows I sell, which is the other reason I like working for this team, because everything we sell is free.
Right.
But I would go back to what you were talking about before. You had a comment about the meetings. Wouldn't you say that one of the reasons you left the company was you just got sick of trying to convince people of your perspective?
Absolutely.
I mean, and that was the argument. Like when you quit, I was like, dude, you need to like try harder. Didn't I say something like you need to play the game? And you were like, no, screw it. I don't want to play the game.
Yeah. I didn't have the wherewithal. And I remember the conversation that we had. It was a good one. And we were in your garage, I remember. And, you just said, what's up with you? Don't you have I forgot the term you used, but it was basically the spiritual tenacity. Don't you have the ability just to weather this storm? And I said, no, man, life is short. And I don't want to give up that much.
Yeah.
And also that I think there's some people who really look for conflict. And despite what people think of my presence on Twitter and my blog, I actually don't seek it out. I'm not very good at it.
Yeah.
But there are other people who actually are not necessarily good at it, but they are deft at dealing with public negativity. Yeah. And I want to bring this back around to your blog, because you have been dealing with a lot of negativity lately for seemingly completely innocuous reasons. I have to bring up the floppy disk post. Yeah. The floppy disk post was epic. And
between that and the cloud icon, you just don't mess with people's iconography. They don't like it.
No, I remember someone said you needed to shove a screwdriver into your eyeball or something. What was that comment?
I don't know. As much as it does affect me, you do have to intellectually, emotionally it affects me. It makes me super sad. That's why I always retweet. It's so funny. I've gotten into this habit of retweeting when people unfollow me. People get too psychologically involved in that stuff, but it does hurt. If someone sends you a mean email, and then you don't like that. Mm-hmm. But in this particular case, the case you're talking about, this post wasn't even that good, We'll talk about it on an episode of This Developer's Life, because it's the definition of it is drama. I mean, criticism is one thing and being mean is one thing. We've talked about those things before, but drama has no reason to even exist. You know what I mean? There's dude, we're arguing about what is it called? Bike shedding?
Yes.
The term bike shedding is like when you worry about the color of the bike shed of the nuclear power plant that we're building. It's like, hey guys, we're building a nuclear power plant. Pretty sure the color of the bike shed doesn't matter. But that's the thing that you fight about. You know what I mean? Like, okay, some of the icons were lame and it wasn't really that good of a post. That would explain, I wrote it while I was eating a bagel. It took 5 minutes to write that post. You know how many page views that post got?
No, I don't.
Want to take a guess?
500,000?
1.2 million.
Oh my goodness.
That is ridiculous. So here's the question. Here's the question. And I was giving a presentation at a blogging conference a couple of weeks later. This is a true story. I was giving it with my friend Lovey, who is a branding and social media expert. And the talk was about your personal brand. So in the talk, I brought up the issue of this post, and 1.2 million page views is insane, right? That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous for a number of reasons. One, it's an obscene number, and most people would just love to have that kind of numbers on their blog. Second reason is it wasn't a good post. So when you have something go viral, that's one thing. When you have something go viral and it's stupid, that's even worse. But then in the branding discussion, we said, if that happens, if your blog pops, do you lean into it and chase the page view, right?
Mm-hmm.
And start blogging up, oh, okay, wow. Cloud icons, that got a lot of hits. Blog about fonts, design. I could change the entire direction of handsome.com and start blogging about icons and Apple and complaining, and then I would be somebody else who I won't say his name and wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like I could go and just make declarative statements about stuff that people care passionately about. Or I could just keep for myself. So
let me just ask you really quickly, because this is something that's on my mind. In the past 4 or 5 years, I think you've had, I don't know how many posts on Hacker News, omitting let's say the last 8 months. Over the last 8 months, you are on Hacker News constantly.
Yeah,
What's
I
changed?
Guess if that's a I don't know if that's a source of success. I mean, if that's a representative number of success, I don't think being on Hacker, I mean, before Hacker News, I was on Slashdot all the time. And before that, I was on Reddit. I mean, I just think Hacker News is like the thing that people are reading now.
But it
I mean,
seemed
honestly,
at some point
I was
you
on
were,
Slashdot a bunch in the early 2000s. It doesn't really matter.
you were like a blogging cat, and someone like dribbled catnip on Hanselman.com, and you were like, it almost seemed to me like you were having fun. Like you had gained a bit of attention or a lot of attention from the internet, general internet.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that. What I would say is I had a time in 2011 where a lot of people at Microsoft kept asking me to blog about stuff I didn't want to blog about. And I don't like reminding the people that work for Microsoft that the blog is my blog. I just don't like doing that. But I continually kept doing it. Then I went to work for Hunter, who's my current boss, one of the 6 Scots between me and Scott Goo. And he has no qualms of like, I get that it's your blog. Blog about what you want to. So anytime someone wants me to blog about something, I'll just CC Hunter and then he'll just shut it down. You see what I'm saying?
That's a good boss.
It's totally awesome. Like, and here's the scary part, actually. He's such a good boss that I don't know what he's hiding from me anymore, which, is concerning because if I ever work for anyone else, I'm going to be concerned that like all the times that I've gotten in trouble for blogging about stuff, like the Windows 7 boot to VHD thing, that he's been shielding me, and I'm going to discover that he's been shielding me from a lot of things. You know what I mean? So the point is though, in 2011, I got tired of that. And I called Hunter and I was like, dude, if I'm working for you, I'm going to do my own thing. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. That's why we want you to work for you. If you like, don't blog about Azure until you think it's useful. And you'll notice that I've worked here's a little newsflash actually for you, Rob. You know that I've worked for the Azure team since October. Mm-hmm. The first time I mentioned Azure was June 7th of 2012. And you know what I called the title of the blog post? Windows Azure. No kidding.
I saw it.
And I was like, so I want people to know that it's what I care about. Like, I'm not going to just blog about random crap.
I don't think enough people know this about you, though.
People don't care. I don't know. It's so funny to hear about, I unfollowed him after he blogged about, whatever. People people are fickle. They follow and unfollow and they unsubscribe, for whatever reason. They just, I'm not the center of the universe. They just float away. I found out yesterday, one guy thought that I haven't had a podcast in 2 years. You know why?
Why?
You know why? Because I broke the RSS feed that he was subscribed to. And he literally hadn't thought since November of 2010. He was like, you know what happened in 2010? That's when I rewrote HanselMinutes.com. Wow. So apparently I screwed up a redirect. And he's like, oh, wow, you have been. But then another guy, a couple weeks ago was like, your blog is lifeless. Your podcast is lifeless and boring. And he's like, you don't blog about technical stuff anymore, right? Or not you don't blog, rather. You don't talk about technical stuff. So I go to the archives and I go, oh, wow, I haven't. Like, yeah, he's right. I haven't really talked about anything technical since like April. So like, holy crap. I have actually blogged like the last 9 podcasts have been decidedly untechnical. So that gets to your point. I guess I'm digging other stuff. That's like, how to be black with Baratunde Thurston, relationship hacks with my wife. Hansel Minutes is maybe only half technical now. Some people totally love it. Other people are like, yeah, whatever. He's jumped the shark.
Well, it's funny that I keep wondering about this with you. I mean, as your friend and being in like social circumstances with you, I've seen you, let out that more tenacious side. I wrote that post a long time ago. Scott Hanselman is not a whatever. And I recounted a story, when we were in Vegas, and it was very funny, but you basically took down a guy who was heckling you. And I think everybody in the room just about fell off their chairs because it's a Scott Hanselman you don't see. And
well, yeah, remember the time I talked to Atwood and I swore? Do you know how many people who I lost? Yeah, I said I think I said the S word and people went nuts and I got emails from like, I don't know who you are anymore. And we don't like to swear on the show, but it was a mistake or whatever I don't know. I didn't, and then I added in some bleeps and then all the Australians were like, well, you bleeped it out. What's wrong with you?
Oh, yeah.
You just can't win, who knows? But here's the thing too. The blog posts that I love, the ones that I think rock, no one cares about. Like the Nerd Parent's Guide to Star Wars. Mm-hmm. That totally should have gone viral. Nothing. You know what I mean? Like crickets.
You can never plan these things.
And it's like, oh man, I love that one.
Mm-hmm.
And my Visual Basic 6 and Ruby one, again, a couple of good comments, but largely ignored as a blog post. And this is the point that I make to people. You just can't blog for anyone but yourself, because I don't want to blog about cloud icons and floppy disks, but that seems to be what brings the traffic. Here's the other thing, though. I'll show you the chart of my traffic. You know how many of those people stuck around? 0.
Yeah.
It's a big sawtooth. They're not going to come back. I mean, dude, when was the last time you visited a funny viral website and then returned?
Mm-hmm.
Never. No one stuck around. I didn't get a single new subscriber from that nonsense. So whatever, dude.
Another interesting post you wrote was about Visual Basic.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, that's the one we just talked about. Yeah.
Getting off my lawn. You were comparing VB6 to Ruby. And I remember talking to you in London. I was over in London and we were talking about the post, and I was reading some of the Twitter comments that were coming in, and I was utterly shocked at what people were saying to you. And I remember saying to you on the phone, Scott, you've got to put these people in their place. You're Scott Hanselman, and they're talking to you as if you don't know anything. And your response was pretty tempered. You said, they have a right to explain what they want to explain. And I remember thinking to myself, if the .NET community had a silverback, if I could use that term, from
like a gorilla, a silverback gorilla.
Yes, like the head of a pack, or like someone that you respect, and that if you don't respect the silverback, you get a cuff across the head. I remember thinking to myself, if Scott reared up and put someone in their place, I think it would be a natural pack dynamic, if you will. And I remember saying that to you, and you just kind of said, well, what's the point? And I wanted to ask you about that again. And now in retrospect, thinking about this post, it's been out there for a while. Okay. Have you ever had that feeling, just reading the comments that come in, the negativity that comes in on some of your posts, and just saying, I am Scott Hanselman. Give me some respect here. Have you ever said that to anybody?
No. And who keeps me from doing that? You want to take a guess?
Who?
My wife.
Oh, bless her soul.
No, and I'm being totally serious. It's like, that comes up. You know what I mean? Like, if we're really in the thick of it, like if we're actually, you know what I'm saying?
I'm Scott Hanselman.
No, I'm not saying that, but before that even gets close.
Right.
Like, I think it's not like in every argument. It's not like people, man, Scott Hanselman. That is not on the tip of my tongue. But there'll be times when I'll be like, I don't know, rewiring the house's network or whatever, right? Or I think I redid the baby cams and the DNS wasn't resolving internally, so she couldn't go like HTTP:// child's name. She had to know the IP address, and she didn't want to know that. And I didn't know why the DNS was. And she's like, do you need me to call someone? And, you can think what it's like, in my very first, you want to talk about a silverback, and I'm thinking like, no, I'm pretty sure I've got this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of familiar with.
I could just see Mo's face. She knew exactly what she said to you.
She's like, you think you're slick, don't you? You may think, and I think she said it for me. I mean, I didn't say a word. She's like, you may be Scott Hanselman, but I do not need you to talk to me like that. You this is not on Twitter. This is the children's cameras. Fix it or whatever.
I did something similar to that with you. I think you had called me and asking me for Ruby help or something about comparing Ruby to C#, and I was showing you something and I ribbed you a little bit, and I'm like, oh, in Ruby there's it's dynamic, so there's no typing necessarily, and you were just silent for a second, and I just I gritted my teeth. I'm like, here it comes, and it never came. And you're like, I think I know that.
Because I don't. I try to avoid doing that. I mean,
So have you ever had a moment though? Where, I mean,
I'm not comfortable with this podcast.
I'm sure.
Is this what it feels like to be on the other side? Because you're making it about me. Is this what Dave Ward felt like when I talked about how cool he was yesterday when I talked to him?
Most likely. Well, I'm curious though. It's the floppy disk post. 1.2 million views. You moved the internet, right?
There had to be that's the other thing. Not that much. Very small. Very small.
A little bit. It's more views than I could ever dream of having. But you must have at some point wanted to just jump out and rip these people's heads off and say something like, don't you disrespect me.
I would disagree. I wanted to do the opposite. I thought about just deleting it.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first impression. Then I thought about adding something, like adding a comment that this is not that big of a deal, guys. This is a small thing. This is stupid. I'm just, then I thought about maybe just writing, I don't know, like an update or some kind of a little postscript to say, yeah, I'm just playing, no hard feelings. But then it got way too large, and just people were like, God, what was that one email I got where someone called me an ageist little, and he was just like, it was an older guy, I presume, which makes me like not want to use the word neckbeard anymore, which I think is an awesome word, but it is ageist to say that. But it's also extremely visual. Like,
yeah, I'm reading your blog right now. The comment there's one comment that says "retarded article," and it goes on to rant. And at the very end, it says, "Why should we change?" The icons is what he's talking about. What's wrong with young people having a clue about the past? And knowing what I know about you and your geek trading cards, it's hysterical to me. And my first reaction, if this was my blog, would be, I'm going to put this guy in his place.
No, but see, what's the point? I mean, you never see me argue on the internet.
No, I don't.
Dude, why bother? Why are you arguing?
Let me ask you, do you think it's wrong to stand up, or do you think it's just something you don't want to do?
Oh, I have no problem standing up. My point is, what is your goal? Are you going to get that guy to go, you're right. And then you get to go and do a little dance like, I won the internet today. No, that guy doesn't care. He's never going to, why put all that work into changing his perspective? I'd much rather take the guy to lunch and figure out why he thinks that, and then, worry about it later. But no, he doesn't care. You're never going to change that guy's opinion. Put your stuff out, respect their opinion. I always say that. I respect your opinion. It freaks them out, frankly, if you tell them that you respect their opinion.
It's interesting. It comes down to a leadership thing, too. But you are considered a community leader. Yeah, a lot of leaders out there in various communities, military or whatever, when the leadership is challenged, they have to think very carefully about the response. Of course, some responses, the coldest one, the best one often is just ignore the person.
Yeah.
But there are some responses where you definitely have to rear up and basically backhand a person. And I've never known the difference. I just kind of fly off whatever comes off the top of my head and tell people what I think. I don't have the same throttle you do. And I'm always curious, when people have the ability to pull it in, how much what do you think about it?
Don't you regret it afterwards? Aren't you go off and be mean, and then you're like, oh man, that was the wrong thing to do?
Oftentimes, yeah. But other times, I can look back and say, well, that's what I was feeling at the time. The times where it's the worst for me is when I completely misunderstand what someone said, and then I have to apologize later. But we all do that. But there are times where, yeah, I've this just happened with Pluralsight and TechPub, and I was actually having a little fun with them on my blog, and they didn't understand it. It blew out of control. Next thing I know, feelings are hurt. I'm on the phone with Aaron Sconard, and of course, we had a good yuck over it. When I was in Europe, I met the guy, and we had a good time. But we both had to do a little dance and say, I didn't mean it, I didn't mean it, I didn't mean it. Yeah, and that was bad. That played out poorly.
But see, if you hadn't said anything on Twitter that way and just called in, then you would have avoided all that. And it wouldn't still exist on the internet. The
question for me at the time was, I have a company that I'm trying to defend, and I felt like I needed to defend it.
But see, this is the thing. You don't need to defend it. If you called him, then he would have figured it out and he would have defended it for you. It would have undone the tweet, and then no one would have, it would have just looked like he came to Jesus on his own. But see, then people wouldn't have the drama. But the drama is unnecessary. See, while you were, I would argue that while you guys were fighting about drama, I was getting work done.
That's true.
I mean, I throw this, I do these seminars, and I have a whole other life that people don't know about, where I'm doing blogging conferences and social media conferences and stuff. And this is non-technical people who don't know anything about what I do in my day job. And I've talked about this a little bit in my talks on productivity. If you've ever seen my talk, I did one at Code Mash, which I think was the first time that I'd done that kind of publicly, was saying that, if it's not moving your goal forward, if it's not either making you money or having you spend more time with your kids, then don't do it. It's not moving you forward. Arguing on the internet does not put money in your pocket, nor does it make your code compile better.
Absolutely.
So stop it.
Although it sent 1.2 million hits to your blog. Although that wasn't really arguing.
So here's the thing. One of the guys said on Hacker News, this is actually pretty good. He says, you know how you make $3 on the internet, right? Make a declarative statement, get Hacker News, you know?
Right.
So, but this is the other thing that I found a little bit offensive, which was that was like a goal, like a master plan. Ah, yes. Now I have made $3. You know what I mean?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, I've caught you. You've seen my blog. Mm-hmm. Yes, $6.
Well, in truth, people are jaded because they read articles like, Atwood's infamous "Please Don't Code" or "Please Don't Learn to Code." I mean, it's impossible to move past that title.
Well, but see, the thing is too, though, that maybe he's making actual money blogging. I don't know, but I would be more concerned about blog posts that say, top 10, 14 ultimate whatever, and then make you click like multiple page views. Like if I did my tools list and it required one click per tool, then I think you could accuse me of like page view farming. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. So I think what it's safe to say is we can expect to see maybe a little more spice regularly on your blog, but you're not going to fight no one in the comments. Because you are so polite in the comments.
But this is the thing. I don't get trolls in my comments. Like I get one troll out of 1,000. Out of 1,000 comments, I get one troll. And I usually shut the guy down just by being pleasant. There's just no reason. It's a community. Like, it's like, why are people jerks on YouTube? Because there are no moderators to be
right.
nice to them and get them to chill out. Metafilter has fewer trolls than Slashdot does. And Stack Overflow has fewer trolls than Reddit does. And Hacker News, people get shut down for being mean. So just don't be mean. It's nice and easy, actually.
If I put my comments back on my blog, will you moderate and do the comments for me?
I moderate your comment. I don't think I have the time to pull the weeds that you have happening at your blog, my friend.
Oh, all right. Well, we have come up on time. Scott, it's been a pleasure interviewing you on your own show and letting me take over for today. I feel honored.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
are we going to edit this out? All of this?
Do we need
half an hour?
Maybe we'll just, if you don't want it, we'll stick it in this developer's life. I'll just take it with me.
Oh, that's great. So you're saying so kindly, if you don't like this content, I'll find another way to release it.
That's right.
Oh, Rob Conery.
Anyway, thanks, Scott. It was great talking to you as always.
Don't forget the ending part of the podcast.
What do I say?
This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes. Right. We'll see you again next week.
This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week with some more content-free content.
So kind.
Hey, that's me.
Bye.
See you.